Hello, everybody. This is Matt Russell with the USDA Farm to School Grant Program. I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar where we will be reviewing the FY2017 requests for application, so funding that is distributed through the Farm to School Grant Program. Today's webinar is focused primarily on state agencies and folks that are people that are working with state agencies as an applicant for the grant program. We did a general Farm to School RFA webinar last week, and that will be available shortly on our website. But today we will be focusing on state agencies, and then on the 6th we will have another webinar for tribal organizations and partners with tribal organizations. So before we get started, I just want to introduce two of my colleagues that will be helping out today. We're joined today by Carla Garcia from the Grants Management Division. She'll be helping us talk about the application process. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you.
And we're joined today by colleague Matt Benson. He's going to be helping us with the Q&A tab and helping us manage the online webinar. So thanks again, Matt.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone.
Great, Matt. Okay, so jumping right into today's content, we're going to go over some background information of the grant program, the application overview. We'll talk about the application process, how the applications are scored, budget matching, and then the registration process, and some resources that are available to you as an applicant. And again, we will answer questions throughout, but also with some time at the end. Okay, so we're going to start with the authority and the purpose of the grant program. So the grant program, the Farm to School Grant Program, which is part of the Farm to School Program, which is housed in the Office of Community Food Systems at the Food Nutrition Service of the USDA. The grant program was authorized by the 2010 Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which makes funding available to improve access to local foods in eligible schools through grants and technical assistance. In addition, we do research as well through our department or through the program. Again, it is administered through the Food Nutrition Service, and we are charged with implementing the Farm to School program. So the context of the Farm to School program, the competitive grants are for, this is the broad definition, the broad charge from the authorizing legislation. It's competitive grants for training, supporting operations, planning, purchasing equipment, developing partnerships, and implementing Farm to School programs. As everybody knows in this field, that those are very broad topics, and it's the charge of the request for applications and FNS to dig a little bit deeper to talk about what that looks like on a day-to-day within a grant program. So within the larger context of the USDA, again, Farm to School is as a best practice, should be integrated. It should be integrated. What's happening in the cafeteria is reinforced throughout the learning environment in the classroom and school gardens. It should also be inclusive. And when we talk about inclusive in this context, we're talking about the different ways in which products can be procured, whether it's directly from farmers and ranchers and fishermen, or working through food processors and distributors, or value-added operations. And ultimately, the goal is for you, children that are participating in federal feeding programs to have regular access to local and regionally sourced foods. Along the lines of, yes?
There's just a few folks that are having trouble hearing and suggested just speaking a touch louder.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, thanks so much for the feedback, everybody. Let me know as we go how the volume is. If this is better, let us know, and I can adjust accordingly. So thank you. Thanks, Matt. Along the lines of being inclusive, we also think about the different types of products that are on the when we think of Farm to School, and it's really spanning the entire tray. So fruits and vegetables, dairy products, the meat and poultry, beans, grains, eggs. So thinking broadly about bringing in regional products to the school lunch and other federal feeding programs. It's really about tapping into the local resources that are in your area. Moving on to general eligibility requirements on the next slide, Matt.
Yep.
So who is eligible for the grant program? In general, I'm going to talk both in general, who's eligible for the grant program, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what the grant program means for state agencies. So in general, who's eligible? We have eligible schools, state and local agencies, as you can see here, it's highlighted. That's what we'll talk a little bit more about today, or go into more depth today. Indian tribal organizations, ag producers and groups of ag producers, and nonprofit entities. So funding is intended ultimately for projects that benefit pre-K through 12 students that are served in the federal meal programs, the National School Lunch Program, the Breakfast Program, summer food service program, and Seamless Summer. So that's the program in the larger context. So updates in FY2017, moving on to the next slide. So training applications, these are a few things. We have a lot of repeat applicants, so we want to just highlight some of the things that are different from last year. And looks like I'm able to control it now, Matt, so I'll take it from here. Bear with me here. Okay, so training grants are now submitted online using grants.gov. That's different from last year where they were submitted via email and then ultimately sent into grants.gov. This year, grantees have to choose one type of application. So you either have to pick a support service, training, implementation, or planning. And then additional funding is not available this year for volunteer service projects. That was something that was unique to last year. So FY17 priorities. This is an important part of today's discussion. The priorities are priorities of the agency, and they are consistent from year to year in some cases and change from year to year. Important to this year's project and to everybody on the call is that state agencies are a priority for this year's grant program. We also have projects that aim to bring local and regional foods into CACFP and summer programs. As in years past, projects that focus on innovative procurement and project submissions that reach more than one school. So that's an important, those are four important priorities to keep in mind this year. So moving right on to the types of grants. We have four different types of grants that are supported through the grant program. We have support service grants, implementation grants, planning grants, and training grants. You'll see here that two of the four have asterisks next to them and are highlighted. And we're going to dive in a little bit deeper today on those two because those are projects that are available to state agencies. I'm going to talk briefly about the implementation and planning grants because you all work with so many schools, school districts, and other eligible entities that we want to be able to equip you with the information to share that with your school partners. So real quick, the support service grants will represent approximately 50% of the awards. And you can see here it tapers down from there, implementation at 25, planning at 15, and training at 10. It's important because it's in the authorizing legislation that USDA consider geographic diversity. And I'm sorry, Matt, I'm unable to advance the slides again, so I am going to turn it back over to you, okay?
Sure.
Great. So we're going to, as mentioned, I'm going to jump in briefly into talking about the implementation grants and the planning grants. The implementation grants can range from $65,000 to $100,000 and can range from 1 to 2 years. As noted in all of the grants, but we like to reinforce it, is that only 10% of the budget can be used towards food costs. There's a 25% match for implementation grants, and that goes for all the grant types in the Farm to School grant program. Okay. Sorry, we're dealing with some technical difficulties today, but we'll keep going. So moving on to the next slide, Matt. Implementation grants, a little bit of background. Implementation grants really are intended to help schools and school districts that have existing farm to school efforts to have them scale up those projects. Who can apply? So pre-K through 12, school food authorities, nonprofit, private schools, charter schools, Indian tribal schools, and others that participate in the federal feeding programs, school lunch and breakfast. So the question that we get often is, do you have to be participating in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program to apply? And the answer is yes. Next slide. So multi-district submissions, this is something that we encourage with both implementation and planning grants, and is a way to leverage federal funding. So the idea is that one school district can submit an application, but they are formally partnering with other school districts, and you can outline that in the applications. So planning grants. Again, we're going over these relatively quickly, and there's a lot more information on both types of implementation and planning grants in the RFA and online, but want to get into the state agency eligible grant types soon. So planning grants, they range from $20,000 to $45,000, and they must be completed in 18 months. Only 10% of the budget can go towards food costs, and only for educational uses of food. Same with the implementation grants and with the others that we'll talk about. And again, there's a 25% match. So planning grants are intended for schools that are really just getting started in the farm to school, bringing local food into their schools. And it is an opportunity for grantees to embed best practices into their early program design. And in short, a planning grantee will go through an 18-month strategic planning process. We have 12 modules that will take the grantees through that range from menu planning to building your farm to school team to evaluation, school garden, putting together a comprehensive plan that's going to set schools up for success over the next 12 months, 24 months, 5 years. Again, the eligibility is the same for planning and implementation, so those are pre-K through 12 school food authorities and other entities that participate in the federal feeding programs. Again, multi-district submissions are a priority. And we encourage folks, as state agencies and folks that are working with schools, if any of your schools or the partners that are working with schools have any questions other than this, to reach out and we can walk them through the application process for this grant type. So with that, we're going to move on to the support service grant.
Hey, Matt.
Support service grants. Next slide, Matt. You'll see that the funding is a little bit higher for the support service grants than the planning. They range from $65,000 to $100,000, and they range from 1 to 2 years is the project length for those. Again, only 10% of the funding goes towards food and application purposes. When we say that, we mean the food taste test. We're bringing in products for, say, product development, and that is in the authorizing legislation. The 25% matching is repetitive, and I know it's a little bit repetitive, but it's important to know that.
Hey, Matt. Folks are having trouble hearing you.
Okay, we'll keep working on the volume here.
Thanks.
Apologize to everybody.
There was also a question that might be good to answer now.
Yeah, great.
And the question was, does it have to be breakfast or lunch, or can it be summer food, after school, or any other areas?
Yes, it can be those other areas. What's important is that the project is school-based, so it is those activities are happening at schools that participate in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program. So that is a question that we get frequently, so at this point in time, the funding is limited to activities that are within the summer and CHCFP programs, but they're happening within the context of a school district. They're school-based that are participating in those programs. We have a lot more information on that particular issue in our FAQ, and encourage everybody to take a look at that, and we can answer any more specific questions via email, or we can talk on the phone as well, and all of our contact information is online. So thanks everybody for the feedback on the volume. Just keep me posted. Again, we're having a little bit of an issue here, but we'll keep pushing on. Okay. So support service grants are intended to, all right. Okay. Okay, so support service grants are are intended to help entities such as state agencies that are working with schools or school districts to further develop and provide broad-reaching support for farm-to-school services and initiatives. So we can apply, again, state and local agencies, Indian tribal organizations, ag producers or groups of producers, and nonprofit entities that have strong evidence of community support and partnerships. There's a wide variety of activities that are supported through the support service track. I'm not going to go through all these, but I'll go through a few of them. But the point is it is a wide variety of activities. Practitioners in this area know that farm to school includes a lot of different focus areas, and this support service track was designed with intention to be able to meet the wide variety of activities. So it can range from hosting networking or other meet and greet events, conducting farm to school evaluation, bringing more local products, doing procurement training, bring more products into the cafeteria. So I encourage everybody, if you're thinking about a project, if you're thinking about your work with schools and communities around your state, is to look at this list, and if you have an idea that doesn't seem to be falling in this, you don't see it in this list, give us a call or shoot us an email, and we can review the RFA with you, and we can see if your ideas match up with the request for application. To that end, I wanted to include here a few examples of previously funded projects. So these are examples. I didn't list them by state agency, but they are all projects that were conducted by state agencies over the last 4 years of our program. So providing food safety training to local producers, trainings around procurement, food preparation, food safety with schools. We had a mini-grant program, very successful mini-grant program, where the state agency worked with school districts from around the country, and they ran a competitive grant program so that they could identify programs throughout the state and work with them more closely. Coordinating marketing campaigns to promote local products. We've seen some really great innovation around marketing state-based products and being able to expand that marketing and communication to schools across the states. Piloting new product development, feasibility studies. In particular, one project was around local meat. Strengthening supply chains through food hubs and organizing relevant communities of practice. So bringing folks together. As a state agency, you're uniquely positioned to be working with practitioners and school districts from across your state. And really, you're the experts in the knowledge and who is innovating in your state. And so, leveraging that position to bring those folks together to share best practices, again, to create communities of practice. Hosting food shows or meet and greets to showcase local products. Meetups, there's a lot of different names that these events go by, but it's essentially it's a matchmaking, it's a networking event where producers and schools and other institutional buyers will get together and learn about local products, learn about local demand, and be able to build a stronger network supply chain in your state. On our website, we have all the grantees that we've funded over the years listed with a short description of their project. I welcome everybody to take a look at that and to reach out to us if you want any more information about any of those example projects. So the application process, what does it look like to apply for a farm support service grant? So the meat of the application is the proposal narrative. And here you'll see the sections of the proposal narrative. And the RFA, the request for application, will take you step by step for filling out the proposal narrative. In the case of the support service, it's a 10-page limit. And it'll take you through these key sections: background information, ask you about the project, and then the quality assurances staffing, or the monitoring component. So it's really important as you're thinking about your project is to take some time, read through the proposal narrative questions. Each one of these sections will lead you with questions about the information that the USDA would like to see in your application. I strongly encourage everybody to read through the application to find out what those key questions are and to be prepared when you sit down to write your application. It's worth looking at this ahead of time. So as an applicant, what is required of a state agency if you're submitting a support service grant? First and foremost, you have to submit a complete application. That complete application will include evidence of existing community support, mainly in the form of your 3 letters of support that detail those relationships. So your external partners, whether it's your school, another state agency that you're working closely with. In many states, the Department of Health is working closely with the Department of Ag and the Department of Education. And so I encourage you to take a look at your list of partners and figure that out ahead of time so that you give your partners enough time to get those letters of support. As with all other grant types, there's a 25% match, and the RFA does outline how to calculate that match in a pretty straightforward way. And it's important to look at all the requirements of the RFA so that your application is considered complete and then will be reviewed. In addition to what's required of an applicant, you're also encouraged to submit projects where this funding is really leveraging existing projects and it's additive to efforts that are happening within your community and within your program reach. Supply chain partnerships with the regional producers and processors, manufacturers and distributors. Obviously, the supply side of the equation is very important in farm to school. So showing evidence that you have partnerships and you have worked in that area. Evidence of farm to school program or successes to date. This is unique for the state agencies, and you'll see in the questions is part of the priority is previously unfunded state agencies. And so it might be hard for some of these partners to put in or to show very strong evidence or a long history of farm to school. And so you'll see in the RFA, we take that into consideration. And the way that plays out is you're prompted to show relevant experience. So what type of evidence or experience you have that's relevant to farm to school. It's similar initiatives, whether it be a wellness policy or some other type of statewide initiative working with schools, school districts, and other partners. Again, submissions that reach more than one school are preferred, and that procurement continues to be a priority for the grant program. Support service grantee requirements. So now we're talking a little bit more about what happens once you receive your grant. What will be expected of you as a farm to school grantee? So first and foremost, after you receive your award letter, you'll be asked to participate in a variety of orientation calls. So a lot of it's programmatic, getting up to speed on how to register in the reporting systems, how to log into the systems to get paid for your work. So there'll be orientation calls. We will have one-on-one periodic calls that you'll be required to participate in. And this is the key one, is the third point here, is that you will be required to participate in at least at one face-to-face meeting with USDA staff. We typically try to time it around a national conference to leverage people's travel time, but it's not always possible, in which case it will be a standalone conference. Applicants will include the travel costs for at least one person in their project, and we walk you through that in the RFA. You're also required to complete standardized evaluation activities, which currently is in the form of some data collection at the beginning of your project, throughout, and at the end of your project. We also have quarterly monitoring progress reports. You may be asked to host USDA officials for a site visit, and if you are, and it works for your schedule, then it would be covered by the cost of the USDA. All the costs will be covered by the USDA. Great. Okay, so now moving on to training grants. Training grants is another opportunity for state agencies. We've been funding training grants for 2 years now, and they focus and they range for the state. There's 2 different funding levels. 15 to 25,000 and 25 to 50,000. The 15 to 25,000 are for state-focused projects. 25 to 50 are for regional and national. And for the purposes of this program, regional is defined as more than one state, so a project that's reaching more than one state. Again, as with all the grant types, there's a 25% match. Training grants, what are they intended to do? They're intended to support state, regional, and national trainings that have a specific emphasis on developing supply chain relationships. There's a wide variety of activities that can be supported through these projects, trainings on local procurement, food safety, school gardens, culinary education, or integrated agricultural-based curriculum. So the point here is that there is a wide variety of activities that can be supported through training grants. Who can apply? Nonprofit organizations, state agencies, Indian tribal organizations, and ag producers or groups of ag producers. So if you're interested in this, that's great, and we'll help you through the application process. Or if you have partners that qualify or who are for this type of grant, please feel free to share this information with them. So allowable activities. Again, there's a wide variety of activities that are funded through the training grants, including trainings on local procurement, bringing together stakeholders from across the supply chain. So bringing together producers, distributors, buyers, schools, those meet and greets, those farmer showcases or producer showcases that we talked about earlier. Food and agricultural curriculum, bringing together folks in training, and how do we integrate the classroom with the cafeteria, and doing trainings for schools or community partners in that area. So if you have any questions about the type of projects that you're looking for in the training grant, please do reach out and we can talk more about it. Here are some examples of some previously funded projects that we funded over the last 2 years. So hosting a statewide farm-to-school conference, a general farm-to-school conference that includes topics like local procurement, school gardens, education. Hosting Food Safety Academy was a branded name for one of the projects we funded. So bringing across school food service staff from across the state to learn the best practices in food safety. In some cases, it would be one conference where folks come together. In other cases, applicants and grantees would do regional within the state. So they would go set up 4 different trainings throughout the state. It depends on what resources you have and what works best for you. Hosting producer-only food safety trainings is also an option. So it's really about finding the target area in your community and putting together an application that works and fills in the needs for your stakeholders. So training grants, they must have, again, 25% match. We do ask that you include the relevant CVs and resumes of all the personnel that are managing your project. And it's important that you submit all the materials on grants.gov, and we'll talk more about that process here in a little bit. But it's important to get the full application in so that it's a fair competition. You're also encouraged to include in your optional attachments evidence of previous success. So have you hosted a similar event in the past? If you have promotional materials from that, we'd like to see those. It's a good way for the reviewer to get a better sense of your experience in this arena. So the training grant application, similar to the support service grant that we went over, the proposal narrative is the majority of your application. And here it's broken up into 11 questions. It takes you very simply through 11 questions and with a 5-page limit. So it asks you to, where's the training? Describe the training. When will it take place? Who are the partners? And again, the point here is we're not going to go through them all, but is to simply, when you're writing your application, when you're thinking about it, go through it step by step and answer each question. Grantee requirements. So what's required of a grantee, a training grantee, should you receive funding? We ask that you make best faith effort to use USDA farm-to-school information, our newsletters, our fact sheets, to share those when relevant, to place the logo on all training materials, and we have disclaimers for those materials as well. We also provide standardized USDA evaluation questions, and we'll provide those when you receive your award. And what we're trying to do from the department level is to get a better sense of the impact of these projects collectively, and that information helps us. And then finally, you'll be asked to submit that information to us, all the information that you pull together for your trainings for us to review when the project's over. You may be asked to host a USDA official, and again, in this case, all the costs would be covered by the USDA.
Hey,
so
Matt.
at this point, we're going to talk a little bit more about the application process, and I'm going to hand Oh, real quick before we get into that, we're going to the review process. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. And then I'll hand it over to Carla. So everybody has picked the type of grant they want to apply for, support service or training grant, and you've put together your application. You've been able to submit it online, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. And now the information goes to the USDA. So what happens from there? First and foremost, all the applications are screened for eligibility. Did everything get completed? Did you submit all the forms that you needed to submit? The support service projects are rated on a scale of 1 through 100, and they are reviewed by a 3-person panel. The training applications are reviewed by a 3-person panel as well, and that's on a 1 through 50 scale. So once all the applications are scored by the review teams, they are separated by grant type, so we'll look at all the applications for support service, all the applications for trainings, and so on. And we strongly encourage you to look at the review criteria because it's going to help you. It's going to give you a sense of how are your responses going to be evaluated. So the final recommendations are made to the selecting official. So the high-scoring proposals are sent up to the selecting official who makes the final decision. I do want to emphasize here this last bullet point is that in the final stage of selection, you may receive an email that has clarification questions. And it's an email that says, we've got some, we did a budget scrub, we did a program scrub, but we need a little bit more information about this or that, a little bit more clarity on a budget. It's not an award letter, and it is something that needs to be addressed before a final decision can be made.
Hey, Matt?
Yes.
Before we go to Carla, could we take a short break and perhaps answer a couple questions?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. There was one question, I believe related to the support service grant, and it says, can a person be fully funded under the support grant?
Yep, that's a great question. And the answer to that is there is no limit to the percentage of staff that is covered by the grant proposal. So there's been a wide variety of applications that have been funded, haven't been funded, that range from a small percentage of people's staff being covered by the grant funds to a larger percentage of people's staff. So there is no set limitation on that.
Okay. And there was a couple other questions. One was whether or not the 2017 grantee gathering, whether that location has been set yet, and if not, how would a grantee know how much money to budget for travel?
Yep. The location has not been set yet, and we have guidance in the frequently asked questions on our website on how to make a best guess on the cost of that travel to the conference. It's also important to note that if something, if a proposal comes in and it gets funded, and there needs to be some tweaking of the funding for the travel, that is an option within our grant program. You can make some changes if, say, you overestimated in dialing it back or need some extra funds to help cover travel. So there's some flexibility there. But we do have pretty good guidance in the FAQ on how to estimate the cost of that travel. Okay.
One other question is there seems to be an overlap in the types of activities funded under support service and training grants. When deciding which type of application to submit, is the distinction primarily the amount of funding needed to carry out the project, or are there other criteria that would make a project a support service project versus a training project?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's something that we can flesh out a little bit more in our FAQ. But yeah, so the person asked the question points out two distinct components. One is the level of funding, and then two is the type of grant. And so I think it's important, to consider, if it's a good fit. Well, let me back up. A lot of support service applications have had a training component.
We're losing you, Matt.
What's that?
We're losing you.
Oh, very few. Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's better.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on here with the computer, but so many support service grants have training components to them. Very few of them are exclusively for training projects, so there'll be other elements to it, whereas the training grants, and so in that case the support service grants are a little bit more flexible. They can include training and other activities within the same project, whereas the training grants are, they're 12-month projects, they're shorter, and they're really for specifically funding just those trainings without a lot of flexibility in other activities. That's maybe not the most clear guidance, but we can put a little bit more thought into that question. If other folks have that, simply reach out and we can continue to work through that and get it added to our frequently asked questions.
Okay, there's a couple of other specific questions. There's another specific question, and then there's maybe one other that we could perhaps answer right now. Is in the previous examples of support service project, it was mentioned that a state agency used the grant to distribute $10,000 in mini grants to school districts.
Correct.
Off the top of your head, do you know which state that was?
Off the top of my head, I believe it was Kansas. And if that person who asked that question shoots me an email, I can look up that information more specifically and get it over to them.
Okay, I'll include the email in the
that'd
chat
be great.
function. Yep. There's one more really specific question, and I'll maybe just respond to that via chat.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for being patient with the audio issues. I really appreciate it. We're still fine-tuning our process here. So real quick before turn it over to Carla about the application process, I do want to point out just priority considerations that come down again from the authorizing legislation, so that everyone has a good sense of what the program looks at overall. So the Healthy, Hungry, Free Kids Act does mandate that a priority consideration be given to schools or districts that serve a high proportion of children who are eligible for free or reduced price meals, which is why we ask, when you know the community that you're working with, if you know at the time of application, we ask you to submit that free and reduced price information. It helps us make an informed decision. It also allows us to report back on the schools that are being reached by the program. Do you need a high percentage to apply? And the answer to that is no. It's considered as one element of a number of as part of the whole package of information that's submitted. Priority consideration, again, it's considered, but no points are assigned either. So that's a little bit different from the first year where there was an actual point value assigned to that. Also, finally, is geographic diversity. This is a mandate from the authorizing legislation that the projects be distributed across the states. To give a quick overview by the numbers for state agencies, you can see here that 42 states have had schools or school districts receive a grant, 37 states have had nonprofit organizations awarded a grant, and 26 states have had a state agency awarded a grant. So if you have any questions, we have a lot of data, and it's broken out a lot of different ways, so please do let us know. But you can see here in this chart that the state agencies, you can see the application award rate, and the overall rate is 19%. You can see here that the state rate is higher than that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carla, and she's going to take us through some of the registration forms and the format. Thanks, Carla.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And welcome, everyone. I know you guys have been on here for some time. It's a pleasure to have you on the line. So I'm just going to be going a little bit over the logistics of the registration. As you go on grants.gov, you're going to run into a lot of the forms and various formats that are required within the system. And it's very important that you get familiar with that. The sooner the better. So if you've already been on there, then that's great. I encourage everyone to do that. Looks like I do have access to sort through these, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. And it's the required registration process itself. So again, all the grant applications have to be submitted through grants.gov. So in order for you to do that, you're going to have to register, and there is a process for that. And it's pretty much laid out in the RFA, but we're going to kind of go through it here as well. You have to get your Data Universal Numbering System, which is your DUNS number. And you might already have that, and if you do, just keep that in mind. It is a free system. There is no fee. It does take several days to get this DUNS number if you do not have it at the moment. You will also have to go on the SAM site, which is the System for Award Management, and all these specific sites are in the RFA. But most of them are pretty much, yeah, if you were to look them up, you could find them. But there's no fee for that one as well. And according to the website for SAM, last time we checked, it's going to take 3 to 5 business days before your registration may actually process through from the time you actually go on there. And then, of course, there's grants.gov, which is the actual portal where we have uploaded all the application package itself. So that's probably the first one you need to be going to. You need to make sure that you go in there, that you download the application, that you've got the information that you need. You should be able to see completely what the application package entails when you go to grants.gov. So, again, I encourage you to go on that as soon as possible. Most of you have probably already done that, but if you haven't, make sure you take the time to do that now. Now, grants.gov is a site outside of USDA, and all these various sites that we have mentioned are. Therefore, if you have a particular issue, technical difficulty within the system, we do encourage you to contact them directly because they will have your registration information individually for that individual site. We can always be notified if you're having an issue, but again, I would encourage you to talk directly to the various sites personnel, which there are numbers in the RFA as well, because they're going to be able to actually go into the system and look it up and see what you've done so far. So I'm going to now move on to the next slide. When you go to grants.gov, which is where the RFA is located, you're going to find the budget form, right, which are the required federal forms, and it's the 424, the SF-424A, and the SF-424B. So the SF-424 is pretty generic. It's going to have, your grantee application information, your official maybe your DUNS number, which, again, you would have had some of this information already previously done from the sites we mentioned earlier. So it is very important that you get that done in order so that you can complete even the 424 form itself. And then you have the 424A, which is going to break down line item by line item your budget. Something to keep in mind is that the SF-424, this is a grant that requires a match. There is a section in there, and we have, I'm sure, examples throughout the RFA that will require you to enter the match, right? And so make sure that you're capturing this information, this being unique to this particular grant. Regardless of which specific one you're asking for, we still need to capture that information on these required forms. There's another form, the disclosure of lobbying activities, and the statement of assurance, which is the AD 3030. And again, there's a note here. This is only required for the profit and nonprofit corporations. If you're not sure and you have questions about that form, again, you can contact us. And then we do ask that you include the Farm to School cover sheet. Now, this is what your standard package should have. So before you hit submit or do anything, make sure you print out that checklist and you check off, because these are the same things we are going to be looking through when we accept the applications. And another thing that will happen is the system is more than likely going to be kicking you out if you don't have a complete package of the required federal forms or the SF-LLL. And so, again, I encourage you guys to do that with plenty of time in advance so that, you're not running frantic at the end, because I know that can be stressful if you're in the system, especially as it gets closer to the deadline. The required format for the application, again, we have a very specific method for that, and that would be the table of contents, and this is the specific order. The narrative response, obviously you're going to be writing your narrative in regards to that applicable grant that you're applying under, right? So if you're doing a support service implementation, there is a 10-page maximum, and for the planning and training, we have a 5-page maximum. So again, just kind of be looking at those parameters, be aware of them as you're writing now. We don't want you guys to have to, do a lot now and then come here and go, oh, no, I did more. So things to keep in mind as you're writing those narratives. The paper size and the specific font information is here as well, 8.5 by 11, pretty standard. Don't try to put it on a big sheet. And then keep it at 12-point font. It's user friendly and we can read it. We don't want something super small that we can't read what you submitted. So then we have the Times New Roman or Arial. And please number your pages. That's very important because it makes the even just to go through the application, it's a much smoother process. So this is the format. And now, again, just reemphasizing, we will not be taking any applications outside of grants.gov. This has to be submitted by 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on December 8th of 2006. And the system will automatically, because again, it's an automated system, it will automatically not allow you to go in there. So, try to go way try to get into the system way in advance of that deadline. I highly encourage you. If you could even do it before, that'd be great, but I understand that might not be the case. But because everyone's going to be on the system, I just think it's a good idea that you get in there with plenty of time so that you can make sure you've done all the pre-requirements and that you're set. If you're having issues, obviously you can contact us, and actually that would be a great idea. One of the things I will encourage you to do, and it's exactly what's going to happen when you reach out to us, because more than likely we'll have lots of inquiries around this time, is do a screenshot if you can, and if you have a number for grants.gov, let us know what that is, which is kind of like your application confirmation number that you get from grants.gov. Those type of things will make the process go a lot smoother, and since we anticipate a lot of people, that have probably large number of people are going to be applying, it would be a good idea for you guys to do the screenshot so that we know where you're at, and we can determine if that's something we can help out with or if you need to reach out to grants.gov. But again, grants.gov is, my understanding, they have a helpline, and so if you contact them even outside of work hours from us, they should be there, and I'd highly encourage you guys to call that number as well. The DUN, SAM, and grants.gov, again, all have helplines. You can go straight to the website, and there are numbers for that. One of the other things that I guess we wanted to make sure we pointed out here was, there are specific file naming conventions within the system, and so just be aware of those. If you're not sure what they are, you can always, check out the RFA as well, but, just pay attention to those naming conventions. You know how files are. Sometimes they don't take very well into the grants.gov system. So just pay attention of what you're calling it. Pay attention to maybe the system you're using, and make sure it's compatible with grants.gov. One of the things here we're highly encouraging everyone is submit an application a week earlier. I would really encourage everyone to do that, particularly for this particular grant. Matt will probably have better numbers than I do, but I'm very sure that it's a large number that will be coming in, and so I think there's nothing better than to know you've already done it, and if you plan it and you plan with plenty of time, you should be able to get that in here. And that way, you've got a week of a cushion there. If you do have an issue, you're technically still can have time to talk to the various website holders per se, and you can get with them if there's a particular issue that you run into. But if you do everything with plenty of time, it should go smoothly. Again, if you have a question about any particular system, just let us know, and I'm pretty sure we have some questions in the frequently asked questions as well. Let's see what else is on here. When you go to grants.gov, because this is probably going to be the number one question we're going to get the day of, if you wait till last minute especially, the grants.gov website will send you a confirmation that it was, that it was submitted. And you should receive a grants.gov number. So that's your confirmation right there. If you're going to email us, we might be able to check, and I just know that this is your receipt. Again, it's an automated system, so when you go through grants.gov, you'll get an actual number saying your application has been submitted, and it'll give you an actual number. Be sure you read the confirmation. I would imagine that if there's been some sort of error, the system itself will also let you know, so pay attention. so that you know for a fact that it's been submitted. Because, again, one of them might say, yes, your grant has been submitted. Here's your number, kind of like a receipt number. And then there might be another one that might say there's been some sort of issue, it did not go through. So pay attention, read it, and then know that, and keep that on file as well. Go to the next one. I don't know if I can. Okay. Yeah, it still looks like I'm up here. I just want to make sure. So the budget and the budget narrative, it looks like we do have a little bit more detail here on the form itself. So this is the SF-424A. It's kind of like the meat of where your budget is, and gives us a very good idea of what you're going to be submitting and as far as funding is concerned. And one of the main things I've heard out of this one, of course, we have the 25% match requirement. And then, of course, that would be across the board. You also will have to make sure you include the travel. So those are two things to keep in mind. It is a requirement. We are going to be looking at this for this information. So if you're writing notes, just make sure that you're capturing, travel on here, and that you're capturing 25% match, because those are requirements of the grant. The form itself can be downloaded from grants.gov, just like everything else. The hard copy can also be downloaded from the grants.gov website. And I guess we're just spelling out here as well that you can go online, and all the instructions on how to submit the form are attached within the form. So sometimes we'll get questions like, what do I put on line A, B, C, and D? And we're going to look at it right now. So this is the form itself. This is the SF-424A, and if you'll look, you can tell from the sample, which this is a great example, and you've got all these different line items: personnel, fringe benefits, travel, and then at the bottom you've got totals, and of course you have indirect cost, and it's very detailed. You have the federal budget and the non-federal budget, and so in the sample here, it looks like we did include one with a match. You can tell on the non-federal budget that this particular grant has the $12,000. Looks like 980. Having a squint. I apologize if you guys are doing the same thing, but yeah, it's under, I believe, 1F. I wish I could point to it, but I can't. Or maybe you can see me. That would be where you would put it, and then you want to take into account the match. And it says right here on the sample, you've got F, federal, and then you've got the match. So this is a perfect example why you're filling it out. I mean, I know these are going to be emailed as well, and I'll let Matt give more details on that. But if you're not sure, just print this out, because this is a great example. I mean, it's got it laid out for you. If you're not the person filling out the form, if you've got someone in finance doing that, I highly encourage you to just give them a copy, because this is a perfect example of what they need to do. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide. Looks like this one's 61. So budget narrative, of course, these are federal grants, so we have the line item budget that we just looked at, and now we have a budget narrative. And in the budget narrative, these are the things that you need to be including. Very much similar to the line item, except this one is going to be tell us a story of why, who are these people, position, identifying the position titles, specifically for salaries. The percentage of the time that they're going to be devoting to this particular grant, the hours and their duties. So just making sure you're telling us the story of, the staff you're hiring, so that we have a and good understanding of who you're proposing to be hired under this particular grant. For travel, again, we already know we have the requirement for the travel for this particular grant, so you need to make sure that that's included. Identify the number of trips. So I suppose if you're going to have other travel as well, we need to know how many, and if who's traveling, right? How does this relate to the grant? The average cost for the trip, the purpose, the mode of transportation, and so pretty much, the nitty-gritty, so that we have a good idea of who's going to be traveling and how it's applicable to the grant. Now, another thing that we are asking you, and you can see it in the sample here on the slide at the bottom. It says example salary. We need to know how you arrived at the calculation. So you might have $5,000 for salary, but we will need to know, obviously, the hourly rate, how many hours a week this particular person will be working, and how many weeks, for the life of the particular grant. So there is a sample budget narrative, and it's available on the grant website. and that's what it says here, so I just want to make sure that's still there. But, yeah, that's the note we have here. So you can look at that, and, again, I highly encourage you to look at those so that your application is complete. And this is one of the things that we will be looking at during review processes. So I definitely look at those samples. They're pretty self-explanatory, and there's nothing like looking at the actual numbers because it'll show you the various breakdown that we need. But, again, if you're providing the methodology, then you should be fine. And I think that I've got 2 more slides here, and then Matt will take over. But I've got indirect costs. So, if you have an indirect cost rate agreement, then you will know what I'm talking about at this point. And you will have an indirect cost rate agreement that's actually been signed, it's current, and that it is required that you include this in the application itself. So that being said, if you do not have it, there's a process for that. If you're claiming indirect costs, you have to provide the negotiated indirect cost rate approval letter. If you don't have one, then you may propose the indirect costs within the budget proposal. But in order to do this, you have to provide the information prior to the award. So if you're not doing that, if you don't have one but you are going to be asking for it, please make it clear in the RFA. A good place to put this would be in the budget narrative. Under indirect costs, just write, even if you're not asking, if you could put, we are not asking for indirect costs, otherwise the question will come up later at the end, or it's not going to be clear to FNS whether or not you need that. If you are asking for it, then we need to know that, and it'd be good for you to write that in the budget narrative, how much, and we can work that out later. And then, of course, if you are claiming it and you have an indirect cost rate, please include that in your package. Let us know the rate and the type of rate you're applying, and that's all we need. And so, again, if you have any questions, let us know. We're here to help you, and thank you for being on this webinar today, and I'll hand it over to Matt.
Thank you, Carla. I really appreciate it. And I want to just acknowledge that we are at the top of the hour, so we got a little bit behind there. But we'll move through these last few slides on matching funds. I know there's a lot of questions on that, and then wrap up with resources. So as we've mentioned several times, there's this 25% match requirement in the grant program. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Here's a sample calculation here. And you'll see that what's important to note is that it's a 25% match of the total project cost, not of what you're requesting. So here's a simple calculation. Here's what you're requesting plus what your match is. That's your total project cost. And your match has to be at least 25% of that. And so that's something that some folks get hung up on. They assume it's a $100,000 grant, so match only has to be $25,000. Because that's 25% of what they're asking, but that's not it. It's 25% of the total project cost, which is pretty simple here, but it's an important distinction. So types of match that can be applied to the grant is, cash and in kind. So, salary paid for employees, partner organizations, in kind, whether it's loaned or donated equipment based on fair market value, hourly wages. So both cash and in kind are examples of matching funds. You will have to document just based on general accounting principles, both for federal grant programs and in most state agencies have very similar accounting principles, that you need to document anything, and especially around volunteer time sheets and such, so that you can be able, if audited, if asked for those records, you'll be able to provide them. So there were some questions about, well, state agencies, a lot of them are federally funded, and so what types of match funds can be used. So I put together this list here of some different examples that other folks have used, and these are all non-federal matching funds. So salary and fringe benefits of staff working on the project that aren't funded through federal programs but are state agency employees. Salary and fringe benefits of partner staff that are on your project. So a partner's donating their time to the project and is dedicated over, let's say, the 12 or 24-month project. Donated services for project partners, trainings, promotional material design, etc. Volunteer time, donated supplies from partners in addition to donated services. And then, here's one specific example was non-federal matching funds from school districts. It's these mini grants. And so there is a wide variety of ways to meet this 25% match. And if you have any questions about it and you're still struggling to come up with some ideas, just reach out to us and we can help you. You know, if you have ideas, we can tell you if it would meet the non-federal requirement. So farm to school resources. I know we've covered a lot today. It's a lot of information. But the point is that this is just the beginning of the conversation in the context of this application process. We have a lot of resources available online from the Farm to School website where you can access all the descriptions of former grants, the request for application, the frequently asked questions. You can always send an email to farmtoschool@fns.usda.gov. And we will get back to you. Right now, that's me. So if you send that to the Farm to School, you'll get a response from me. And we also have the Farm to School regional leads, and they are a great resource. They're very well connected to, I know many folks in the States know their regional lead and will have a good working relationship, so I encourage everybody to reach out to them. And then just to note that this may not be the right fit for the project you're thinking. There are other grant and loan programs, and we have information on our website. The website here, you know, this is just a quick snapshot of the grant website. It's got a description of the webinars and links to resources. I wanted to dig a little, one click in further. This is the grants opportunity page. This is actually where you'll click into grants.gov, which houses the RFA. You can, and this is what grants.gov look like. And it'll take you into this page, and it's important that you click on the related resources or related documents. That's where the actual request for application is, and that will take you step by step through submitting an application. Again, if you have any questions, shoot us an email, give us a call, and we can take you through the process. Key dates. Obviously, we had our general RFA last week. I know a couple folks on this call were on that one. The recording will be up within the next day is the goal. And then we have another webinar on Thursday for any tribal organizations. So if you have any partners in that area, we recommend you share this information or attend that webinar as well if you think it would be helpful for you again. Applications are due on the 8th, and we'll announce the awards in mid-May of 2017 is the plan. So I know, we ran a few minutes over, but we got a lot of good questions. So Matt, are there any general questions we can answer right now before we wrap up for the afternoon?
Right now I'm seeing two questions that I think might be good to answer.
Great.
The first one is, could you clarify what qualifies as an eligible preschool program?
Yes. So eligible pre-K program is the ones that are eligible to apply for funding are pre-K, are programs that are school-based that are operating the CACFP program. And so there are some programs, there are many programs, service sites that are providing CACFP or summer services that are not on school, that are not school-based, whether they're being at a community center or working with the parks program. But for the time being, with the limited amount of funding we have right now, we're focused on pre-K programs that are operating, that are a school-based program, so operating within the pre-K through 12 or pre-K through 6 environment.
Great. And the other question, and there's a few other questions that I'm not sure we should address. They're pretty specific, but the last kind of general question is, if the state agency applies, is there anything that you can say about the chances of how that will impact the chances of other farm-to-school nonprofit organizations working in their state? Will that increase or decrease the likelihood, or maybe not change the likelihood of those groups being funded? Yeah,
that's a great question, and I'm glad somebody asked. It's all a matter of, it changes year to year. It's within the context of the number of applications. We've ranged in applications from about 375 across the country to about 325, so it's been pretty consistent. But across the states within that number, it's changed quite a bit. Some states, a state may have 12 applications one year and 1 the next year. And so the question about how does a state agency application or award impact the others, it's as much about the number of applications that are submitted from those states. And so there's no way of really being able to speak to how it will impact it, other than to say that geographic diversity is a priority. So it's important that states across the country get funded, and that there's a varying degree of competition within each state, and so that is taken into consideration each year.
Okay. I want to note, Brooke Brockman, we see your chat here, and we'll be sure to follow up via email. Thanks for sending us your email. We'll get back to you on that. And the last question I'm seeing here, Matt, not to leave anything out there, is can previously donated items, it's about matching funds, and maybe it's something that you or Carla could answer, but the question is, can previously donated items that are relevant to the proposed project be counted towards matching funds? For example, if current farm to school project is made possible by donated greenhouses and schools applying for implementation, can they use the greenhouse as a source of a matching fund?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that would be a question that is beyond my technical expertise in that area. And Carla, unless you want to get into that one, I think that's a type of question that would be.
It's a good question. If they're asking if it was previously counted, then I would say no, because more than likely it's already accounted for somewhere else on the books. So if I'm understanding, they want to reuse something that they've already included before somewhere else. So you can't use it twice. That's kind of similar to asking, can I count it for this grant and then use it for another grant? You can't. You can use it that one time. Does that make sense? And I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, and so that's a great question.
If it's your
Thanks.
first time, then sure. It's kind of like money. Once it's there, you've already used it. It's gone. Same thing. If you've already counted it, you can't use it again. It's almost like double dipping. You're using it twice. So no, one time is what you should be using it, and you should be keeping good records of for this particular grant, this is what we match for this. Especially if you were awarded, right? Obviously. Then no, you can't use it twice. You need to use it that one time. Because it's almost
Great.
like
Thanks, Carla.
So when you submit it to us, we approve your budget, and we look at your match. So you're going to tell us, this is what I'm matching, whether it's a greenhouse. We're bringing in a greenhouse project this year, and then last year we got approved, and we had a greenhouse, but it doesn't. You can't do that. You used it last time. You need to submit for something else this time around.
Okay.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just want to add to that, Matt B., I just want to add to that real quick that to the person that asked that question, if they need some more clarity, just shoot us an email and we can continue that discussion.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sounds great. Andrea Spencer, the due date is December 8th, 2016, I believe. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, 11:59 p.m.
Okay. And the last question I'm seeing here is, there's a couple. Rachel, feel free to just follow up via email about that matching piece. And then, Matt, is there anything that you can say about whether or not state agencies will continue to be a priority within the application process in future years?
At this point, I can't. I don't know. We've had, all I can say is we've had some priorities carry over from year to year, and then we've had some that have changed from year to year. So unfortunately, that's all I have.
Okay. I think that's all the questions we received.
All right. Well, again, I just want to, thank you, Carla. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate the help. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. Again, consider this the beginning of the conversation, and any help we can give you along the way in clarifying the RFA and helping you work through the process, please reach out and let us know. And thanks for your patience with the audio issues. But in wrapping up, I just want to remind everybody that we will send out a post-webinar email. It will include the slides. It will also include a short evaluation. And within 5 to 7 business days, we will get the recording posted to our website, and we'll notify everybody then. So with that, I want to say goodbye, have a good afternoon, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.